Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. So this is the first time I'm posting something anywhere. I signed up to Reddit years ago but never really figured out what to do with it. Though, as I was struck by sharing and semi-entitled small interactions I had at a previous job of mine and seeing how folks react. Normally I write fiction, but I'll try nonfiction for once. Anyway, from the end of graduating high school to a few years after graduating college, about 5 years during and after community college with a 1 or 2 year break for university, I worked as a porter for one of those interstate travel plazas. You see where truckers and travelers stop to get gas and eat. My job there mainly consisted of cleaning and sanitation. The usual stuff like cleaning the bathrooms, mopping up spills, taking out the trash, and answering customer questions if asked. Often one of the most common questions was, "Where is the bathroom?" A standard question if ever there was one, but the people surprised me in a few cases, with one guy asking how to get out of the bathroom at one point. I can recall the time some guy even asked me where the door was to get out of the building when he was standing in front of it. There I go again, rambling on like usual, but this was just a preface to some of the strangeness I've seen at that place. Now, from the strange to the entitled, I have 4 short stories of entitled customers I encountered while on the job. Stop the water. I refused to pay for it. I forget what year it was, but I do know it was shortly before COVID. I was minding my own business, just sweeping out the lobby, when along comes this man over to me and asks if I knew there was a skin running nonstop in the men's bathroom. Knew what he was talking about immediately, as since the building was renovated cheaply, some of the fixtures and such had a tendency to fail. For example, the AC unit caught fire twice. Anyway, this sink had been running nonstop for weeks. The second one to do so actually, but this man wanted me to turn off the water. I told him I didn't have the ability to. He then wanted me to get a manager, so I did. As I was walking off, the man said to me that he was a taxpayer and that he didn't want to waste his money paying for a water bill in a town he didn't live in. I knew that he was just looking for an excuse to complain as the plaza paid for its own water and taxes had nothing to do with it. I got the manager and went on my way. Not sure what happened after that as I had outside trash to attend to, but it was weird. I'm not sure if this first story goes here, but the following 3 certainly do. My pizza slice is cold, so the travel plaza used to have a pizza parlor that was shut down due to lack of staffing. It lay empty during COVID and opened up again afterward. Wanting to move up, I volunteered to work in it, with the promise of becoming a supervisor if I proved myself. Though about 4 days later, the manager hired someone who worked at a pizza shop before as the supervisor. For a while it was just me, the supervisor, her boyfriend, and an older man. We made the pizzas from scratch. Admittedly, we struggled to roll out the frozen dough sometimes. After making the pizzas, we would put them out on display and warm them up for customers. Now, to heat up a slice would take about 5-9 minutes. And this one woman comes up and asks for a slice of cheese and a slice of pepperoni. I put both in the oven for the same amount of time and put them on a plate when they're ready. About 1 minute later, the woman returns and says that her slice of cheese is stone cold. I'm thinking to myself, how? I just gave it to you. I handed her 2 warm slices that were warming next to each other for the same amount of time. How could one be hot and the other be cold? Not wanting to argue or get fired, I simply heated the slice up for her again. In my mind, I was tempted to reply to her with an insult, like if you want to warm up your slice, then hold it in front of your mouth while you talk. I'm sure that hot air you exhale is higher in temperature than my oven. Again, this was in my head as I'm too polite to say something like that to a person's face. You can't check my money. No one counterfeits $5 and $10. Now, this one I feel was set up by some greater power. I'm serving another customer about a month or 2 after the cold slice story. She says that she wants to pay with cash and a card. At the time, I was still slightly unsure of how to use some of the register's functions as it was an outdated system with way too many buttons and options for foods we didn't carry. It was so outdated that you needed a manager to come and swipe their card so you could void an item they changed. Their mind about me being me didn't know how to do hybrid payments as they are a bit rare. I thought you could only do cash or card and ask the woman politely which she would like to do. With a huff, she said she would go back to her car and get cash. Just as I was wondering why she didn't just pay with a card if she didn't have enough cash, one of the mangers on duty came along and told me to be careful as someone tried to pass a counterfeit $50 bill at one of the other 2 counters. Taking that to my mental vault, I was going to keep an eye out. The woman then came back with a $5 and $10. So having just been informed of the warning, I put the $10 up to the light and checked for the telltale watermark. The moment I put it up to the light, the woman starts to raise her voice at me, asking why I had the nerve to check her money. I tried to explain my reasoning, but she didn't follow the logic and just said nobody counterfeits 5s and 10s. By that point, I was overwhelmed as she was demanding to see the manager. Thankfully, either one of my coworkers must have heard the commotion and brought the manager over. He told me to go in the back. I was worried that I was in trouble as that was the first time I encountered an aggressive customer. Thankfully, my manager reassured me that it wasn't my fault after the woman left. Looking back, I can kind of see where she's coming from, but think about it. Larger bills aren't the only thing counterfeiters print. People are more likely to pass smaller bills than large ones, as things like 5s, 10s, and 20s are rarely checked. Who's to say whether or not such a thing could happen? I don't care if the line is long, you gave us an incomplete order, and we want our money back. So about maybe 6 or 7 months after the pizza place reopened, the big bosses of the plaza decided that we weren't making enough dough. I know, it was a cheap pun. Complaint forms are available in the comments below. That, coupled with the lack of proper training and the fact that the managers were too focused on the coffee shop and the fast food counter, ensured that the place would be emptied out again. Everyone was transferred over to the fast food counter, and I was assigned to the prep line where I placed the orders into bags. Though this was after COVID and the restrictions were lifted and everyone seemed to pile in. I remember it was early September on a weekday where we had a sudden rush of families with kids coming through, and I wondered why the children weren't in school. Though as I was making the orders that came one after another, one group called me to the side and told me that I made their order wrong and that I was missing a sandwich. Looking at the order, I saw that they were short of a sandwich and offered to get it once it was ready, but I had other orders to fill. Though they wouldn't wait as they claimed to be in a hurry and either they got their sandwich or they wanted a refund, I tried to get the cook to make a new burger, but they were too busy to hear me. Eventually, the group demanded the manager and insisted they get a refund. They didn't care that the line was long. They wanted one of the registers to stop handling customers and to get their money back. So that's what happened. The rest of the day was a blur and I was placed to work at the grill and fryer after that. Now I found a new job about a month or so later, as I recall, not the best with dates, as I was getting tired of getting the runaround. From the plaza's ever-rotating roster of managers and moving up the ladder. Last time I visited the place, the coffee shop closed down and the pizza place was replaced with a donut shop and a smoothie ice cream shop. I like where I work now, as everyone there is friendly and the customers are more sensible. Save for the one who stole some cigarettes, but was stupid enough to be wearing work clothes and driving his work truck. But that's a story for another. Trust me, this stuff was tame compared to what I went through during my high school job. If you like my 4 short stories and want to hear more about the nightmares of my first job, let me know in the comments. Hopefully my first post was entertaining enough. A few years ago, I worked at a mini golf course for a few months between 2 jobs. The facility is a subsidiary of my hometown, and my CO reported directly to the mayor. The place was part of a public park, was also not locked, and outside opening hours you could use the place free of charge with your own equipment, or simply enjoy the beauty of the facility. The only thing that was expressly forbidden there was cycling. Even dogs were allowed there on a leash. This story took place in a summer, and the temperatures had been over 95 degrees for 2 weeks, and on this day it was even 105 degrees. To get to the mini golf course, I had to take 2 different buses. Since it was the holidays at the time, I was the only one assigned for the day, but because it was so hot, only a few people came to play anyway. A total of 3 groups in 2 weeks. The rest of the customers just wanted to buy ice cream, mostly mothers with their children because there was also a water playground on our premises. On the way to work, bus number 1 broke down due to the heat and could not continue. I had to walk to the bus stop for the second bus. Of course, I missed it. I had to walk to the mini golf course in the heat. Shortly before the entrance, I could already hear the church bells for 12 o'clock and was finally able to enter the complex through the main entrance at 12:02. As soon as I took my key out of my pocket, I spotted 2 cyclists out of the corner of my eye. In terms of age, I thought of a father with a son. The older of the 2 spoke to me as he rode his bike in circles around me. Entitled Dad, AD, me. ED, when are you opening? Me, now? ED, what are the opening hours? Me a little irritated. Actually at 12 o'clock. AD, and what time is it now? Me looking at the clock. 12:05, sorry, but the bus is... AD, I don't give a flying crap, it says 12 o'clock and you're late. I want to play continuing to ride his bike around me. Me, Give me one. ED screaming, I don't give a go faster. I had enough then. Me. First of all, not in that tone. Secondly, cycling is forbidden on the entire complex, as can be seen from the signs at every entrance. And thirdly, I don't feel like that kind of crap tea in this heat, so I won't serve you. He scolded me and followed me to the back entrance of our sales room until I closed the door, and he went to the front door. He waited there until I unlocked the door and he could continue complaining to me. He demanded to let him play and give him the contact of my superior. At this point, a few mothers and their small children had gathered to buy ice cream. As he stood in the shop and got louder and louder, he scared the children with his screaming, which made me tell him, either you leave the store and shut up or I'll take care of it myself. Here's my boss's business card. Out. Now. Obviously shocked, he stopped in his rant, went silent, and stepped outside with the card and took his call. A mother told me that she would write an email to my boss herself and report on my exemplary behavior. Less than 2 minutes later, my phone rang. The CO was calling. I had given the customer his card, not the one from my supervisor. CO, sorry to bother you, but I have a customer on the line complaining about you. I told him what happened. CO, I see. Could you please let the customer play at half price? A problem should be resolved. Me, no? CO, no. What do you mean? Me, exactly no. He's not playing today. CO, what if I turned it into a service instruction? Me, then I'll close it immediately and won't open it tomorrow. CO, okay, you're in charge there. Well played. Laughing? After the phone call, I went to the customer, who greeted me with a triumphant grin. When I told him the decision, his expression fell apart and his son started crying. Because the son was so disappointed, I offered that he could apologize and then I would let them both play. I received my apology and even apologized for keeping them both waiting. For the rest of the day, I sat in the shade with my feet in a bucket of ice water and sold ice cream to mothers with their children 3 more times until I closed the shop. It's my little sister's birthday, and on Christmas she mentioned she wanted to go skiing today. No one really said anything, because no one has ever been skiing in our family. Growing up, our family was poor, but as we aged, my dad worked his way into a job position that pays fairly well. Because I love my sister, I thought we all shouldn't ignore her request, so I started looking into it. The ski resort she wanted to go to cost $180 per person, and we have a family of 7. Rentals would be an additional $50 per person, and I didn't see how our family could afford it. I know my parents spend a lot on Christmas, but my dad usually just ends up handing over his credit card to avoid any negative attitudes. When my little sister heard the prices, she didn't really care. It was her birthday and she wanted it to be special, so we should go skiing. I didn't say we couldn't. I just started to explore options. And she said she might go with friends on 12/27 instead. On 12/26, I received a call from our internet provider for a place my grandma left to my dad. They said they had to cancel my 12/27 apt, so I could either take an 8 a.m. to Ninium apt on 12/28, or I could wait until 1/4. My dad has been worried because we need the Wi-Fi for security cameras out there, so I immediately texted my younger sister and asked what she wanted me to do. I told her I could be back by 10:30 a.m., or I could ours for 1/4. Instead of replying back, she ignored me, and when I got home, my dad said she was crying because I couldn't make it on her birthday. I told her I could reschedule. It was no big deal. But then she said she would just go with her friends on 12/27. That night, 12/26, I cracked my tooth and told her what happened. I was panicking, and she laughed and said that sucks and she was still worried about her skiing trip. So I began looking up ski rental places and found a place that would cost $40 for rentals, and a ski place that would cost $40 for rentals, and a ski place that was tiny but would be reasonable and open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on her birthday. I kept this place in mind and waited to hear if she went skiing on 12/27. That morning, 12/27, I also went to the dentist and had my tooth filled. I was in pain but was glad I got it done. I called her soon after 2 p.m., wondering if she went skiing that day. She didn't answer until she came back to the family home at 5:30 p.m. She had spent the night an entire day at her friend's house and said she would be going out again at 8 p.m. to go bowling with friends. She told me to cancel the apt, but she wanted our mom and sister-in-law to go skiing too, but they wouldn't be ready until noon. Because of this, I said I would keep the apt and be back by 10:30 to 11. This morning, I left the house at 6 a.m. and got everything done by 9 a.m. When I got back around 11 a.m., I wasn't sure if we were going because my sister had just gotten home at 10:30 a.m., and she wasn't ready. I had spent the night before finding snow pants for us and assumed she would be ready to go because the place closed at 4 p.m. and it was 1.5 hours away. We finally left the house around 12:31 p.m., and my dad said we'd only get to ski for about an hour or so. She didn't care and said we should still go, so we were on our way. I thought we were going to head straight there, but she casually started driving through town saying she needed gas. She filled up her tank with our dad's credit card and was telling me about her upcoming trips. She said she would be going to the ski resort she originally wanted to sometime next week with friends, and her and my mom were going to California from one with 13. She also said she'll be getting $200 teeth whitening trays, and I asked who's paying for it all. She said our dad. I must have been quiet because she asked why I was frustrated, and I told her I was just disappointed in how entitled she was acting, and it was a little ridiculous to have our dad pay $100 person to ski for 1-2 hours. She told me I better change my attitude or she'd drop me off, and I said that's fine with me. I told her I didn't want to go skiing with her if that was going to be her attitude. Instead of talking it out, she began swerving and crying, and she suddenly turned around and started heading home. I told her if she wanted to ski, we needed to turn around then, but she pulled off the road and jumped out of the Jeep and started walking as she said she was leaving. She called our older brother to pick her up, so we were sitting there waiting for him. I didn't want her telling everyone I left her stranded, so I hopped out of the Jeep and told her it is her Jeep, and she needs to take care of it, and I started walking. As soon as I left, she called all of our family members and told them I blew up on her. I texted my youngest sister, but then texted again and said I didn't want to get her involved. So I walked about 9 miles, and I wasn't too sure how I was going to get home, but I knew I was on my own. As I was walking, my youngest sister drove by with her boyfriend, and they saw me walking. They said they didn't want to be put in the middle, but there was no excuse for everyone leaving me walking. I told her, yeah, but I'm not a victim, and I should have chosen my words better. She dropped me off at the family home and said I don't deserve this, and it's okay to cut off family if I have to. Since being back, no one has talked to me, and no one will. I'll be ignored, and my family is currently at dinner without me or my youngest sister. I really love my family, and I want to fix this. I just don't know how to, or if I should. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Man, let me take you back to 2006, back when I was rocking the U.S. Air Force uniform in the scorching sands of Iraq. No unit, just me, doing my solo deployment gig. Fast forward to the end of that rotation, and I find myself on this commercial 747 heading home. No big deal, right? Well, buckle up, because the trip had a surprise layover in Ramstein, Germany, and that's where things got wild. I'm beat, right? Eyes half closed, reeking of burn pits, just trying to get back to my life. So, there I am, sharing a seat with another military dude, both of us looking like we'd been through a war, because we had, cue the civilians boarding, wives, kids, and other dependents. Cool, no problem, until this lady, carrying a baby, strolls up like she owns the joint. Out of nowhere, she decides we're sitting in her seats. And, oh, my seatmate. He needs to move too because she's got plans for his spot. We're both too exhausted to process what's happening before a stewardess dives in, probably thinking she's defusing a bomb or something. Stewardess tries to explain that the flight is packed, no reshuffling seats, no magic tricks. But, oh boy, this one ain't buying it. She shoves her ticket in the stewardess's face, claiming her seat number matches mine. Apparently, she believes she's more entitled to my spot than I am. This lady tosses her luggage right in the middle of the plane, goes full-on drama queen on the stewardess. I'm so beat at this point that I'm more shocked than anything. My seatmate seems to be in the same boat, and neither of us moves a muscle or says a single word. We just sit there, watching this lady make a total fool of herself in front of everyone on that plane. She eventually gets herself kicked off the flight. The whole thing happens pretty fast, but it's still a total mind-blower. I'm looking at a several days, long trip from Iraq to my home base, and she's ready to boot me and my buddy off the flight just for her convenience. Now, let me paint the picture. The stale air inside that plane felt heavier after the Karen show. I guess it hit me then. The journey home was going to be just as exhausting as the one from Iraq. And here she was, thinking her need for a specific seat trumped the fatigue and sacrifice we'd been through. The passengers, who were probably just zoning out until then, were now wide-eyed, witnessing this crazy scene. Her luggage was still sprawled out in the aisle, a lingering reminder of her grand exit. Her voice had echoed through the plane, yelling at the stewardess like she was the commander, in chief of the aircraft. In the end, the stewardess had enough. She signals for backup, and security personnel boot Karen off the plane. The gawkers turn their attention back to their business, but my seatmate and I share a glance that says, did that really just happen? With Karen gone, the plane settles back into its pre-Karen vibe. I sink back into my seat, feeling the weight of the journey ahead. It was like a momentary interruption in the middle of this crazy trek from one end of the world to the other. Now, me and my seatmate didn't talk much. No need for words. The exhaustion spoke for itself. We were just two guys in camo trying to get home, hoping the rest of the trip would be Karen, free. Who knew that a simple plane ride could turn into such a circus? Last week I kicked what I thought was a good friend out of my house because I can no longer handle her antics. Just want to write it here just to de-stress and deal with the grief of losing a friend. Kendall, 25 female, and I met in university in 2016. We studied different majors, but we're from the same department, so we share many classes together and bonded over our passion for gaming and memes. Upon graduation, Kendall moved back to her hometown due to COVID and found a job there. We kept in touch online through Instagram. About 3 years later, Kendall told me she found a better paying job in the city, so she's planning to move out from her parents' place. When I asked her about her plans on her accommodation, she replied with, "That's the thing. I was going to ask if you have an extra bedroom that I could move into." For context, I have inherited an apartment from my late grandfather, which is a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath near the city center last year, January. And I currently live alone there since it is closer to my workplace and it has all the convenience of public transport. After some thinking, I thought that there's no harm in living with Kendall since I considered us as close friends. We discussed the terms and the rent. A week later, Kendall moved into my apartment. It was great at first. My home felt more lively than usual, and the thought of going home to a close friend warmed my heart and gave me a sense of security. Things were okay for a while, and then it all went downhill super quick. Kendall started complaining about many things at home, about her work, her savings, and how she feels homesick. At first, I was very accommodating, thinking maybe she just needs time to get used to the city life. I offered as much help as I can, even to the point of if she's low on money, I don't mind voiding a month's rent if it meant I could help her to achieve financial stability. I taught her how I save money, how I live off with my then low salary with several commitments like my car, my dog, and a student loan. I grew up where my parents expected me to be independent, so I told her things I'd do when I'm low on cash, how to get freelance jobs, etc., but she always seems to have excuses for every suggestion I have. Finding a freelance job is too hard, or how she couldn't let go of her premium junk food that she isn't willing to cook or meal prep, and I eventually decided to leave it as it is. And after 2 months of living together, I realized Kendall started treating me as some kind of competition. She would constantly ask me things like how much money I make a month, how many job hoppings did that take. Anything that she thinks she's better than me, she'll definitely pop that question. She boasts about how she is loyal to her shitty-paying company and how I would never be able to move up the corporate ladder, as she called me an industry frog. She once snooped my savings balance and asked how the F did I have so much saved up with commitments, etc. Mind you, she didn't have a lot of commitments since her parents paid off her student loans and fully paid off her student loans and fully paid off a brand new car for her. And maybe I should stop collecting rent from her. I got mad and told her if she isn't happy living with me, maybe she should move out. Cue crocodile tears as she said it was a joke. I didn't have to take her seriously. She begged for forgiveness and promised to never snoop my personal items and details again. I let it go once, but she kept bringing things up like, "Will you have the cash and a credit card?" every time I told her I'd rather stay home, because I no longer have the budget to go out and have fun. Comments like these became more frequent when I got a new job 6 months ago. On top of that, she doesn't clean up after herself, tried to flirt with my boyfriend, and at times parked in my parking space when our initial agreement was that she has to find her own parking space if she's moving in with her own car because my apartment only has one parking lot per unit. The straw that broke the camel's back was when I caught her kicking my dog in his abdomen when I got home from work. I yelled at her and rushed to check my dog. Luckily, he was fine, but I still rushed him to the vet for safety measures. I got home and she sneered that it was just a dog, and as a friend I shouldn't treat her like that. I asked why she'd kicked my dog and she didn't answer me. She shrugged and tried to escape into her room. At this point, it was already about a year since Kendall moved in with me. I lost my cool and told her off, bringing up her problems and how I tried to be nice and accommodating. Then I told her I'm giving her a week to move out, and that from then on I'd rather we keep our relationship casual or we don't ever talk at all. Kendall cried and begged me to not kick her out, but soon it turned into her screaming back at me, calling me a bad friend because apparently in her words I didn't tell her off on how badly she was behaving. Like, what the fuck? There was a lot of back and forth, which I don't remember what I said, but I remember eventually calling her an entitled brat. She cried again, saying it was uncalled for, and stormed off to her room. The next day I was bombarded with texts from other unit friends, some calling me selfish and others sympathized with me. Apparently, Kendall posted our argument on Facebook and Instagram, painting me to be the bad guy. I was upset at first, but I decided that after Kendall moved out, we would no longer be friends, as well as those who took her side of the story and condemned me. Last week, Kendall left, and I've changed the locks on my apartment. I curled up in bed and cried myself out, probably from the sadness of losing a friend, or maybe I'm finally letting out all the frustrations. I am definitely still grieving about this loss of a friend, as I've had many good times with Kendall. For now, I want to focus on myself, and hopefully I eventually get over this. Edit. The whole teasing that I have more money than Kendall gotten worse when I told her I was given an offer by an MNC as a senior designer. And I disclosed to her the offered salary, as we always did, like I know how much she earns too, which was about 50 more than hers. That was dumb on my part. I now understand why my parents told me to never disclose Discus Aries the moment I started working. Lucy has this fun little story for us. She used to be a waitress at a restaurant in an army town in order to pay for college. This restaurant, as I said, was higher end. It was rare for kids to eat there to begin with. However, on the 14th of every month, there is a no children night. You have to show your ID to prove you're over 18. These nights are also a bit fancier than usual. There's a dress code, coat check, 5-course menus, more expensive ingredients, the works. You also need a reservation and pay in advance to have dinner there on No Children's Night. These nights are so popular that reservations are made at least a month in advance. As you can probably guess, patrons love it. Well, most of them anyway. Lucy normally works summers, but when it was the holidays, she'd work there for some extra cash. She was back in town around Valentine's Day, February 14th, her junior year of college, when the owner, John, called and asked her if she was willing to work the night, as they were short-staffed. He even promised her a free meal of her choice. Lucy agreed, knowing she was going to expect a good night and tips alone. Valentine's Day is the most popular no-children night for pretty obvious reasons. Lucy saw more than one woman wearing a fur coat and wearing expensive jewelry. There were even a few officers in dress uniform. The night was swinging, and then things went to hell in a handbasket. Lucy was carrying a tray of food to a table when all of a sudden she's body slammed by someone. She lost her balance and fell, sending food and plates everywhere. Fortunately, she was more surprised than anything else. There, running around the restaurant like it was on fire, were 3 kids, ranging in ages from 10 to 2. They're darting under tables, pushing other patrons, screaming, shouting, laughing. Being obnoxious. John rushes over to Lucy. "Are you okay?" he asked, helping her to her feet. "Yeah, I'm fine," Lucy said. "Thanks." At this point, a couple of patrons and the other servers are catching the little hooligans. Another server arrives with a dustpan and broom and takes control of the mess. John rounds up the kids, drags them back to the front, and Lucy sees that Dick Entitled and his wife, Karen, are there. "What are your children doing here?" John asked, his voice full of barely contained rage. The sitter canceled last minute. Dick Entitled said, "It's no children's night. I would have given you a refund had you told me." John shouted, "Your brat's knocked over a waitress. It's a wonder she wasn't hurt." "Don't you dare call my children that," Karen said, wagging a bejeweled finger at John. "We pay good money to keep your lights on. You will seat all 5 of us, and don't expect a tip." "No," John said. "You are going to take your children home, and your family are not coming back. Ever. Don't expect a refund either. Your money will be used to pay for the food and plates your brat's ruined." The Entitled family left, and Lucy assumed that was the end of that. But the night was not over. In the back of the restaurant by the restrooms, there's a door that leads to the back parking lot. It's left unlocked during business hours and is equipped with an ear-splitting alarm, as it's a fire exit. Unfortunately, it was just a regular door, not one that can only be accessed by the inside. Sometime later, Lucy is introducing herself to some patrons when there's a loud ear-splitting siren. Lights above the fire alarms flash. Everyone leaves thinking the kitchen is on fire or something, because the alarm is connected to the fire department. They arrive with lights and sirens blaring. They arrive and check the building, and there's no signs of a fire anywhere. The fire department disengaged the alarm, and everyone returns to dinner. Lucy assumes it's a faulty alarm, someone accidentally opened the fire door, and doesn't think more about it until after the night is over. She's enjoying a dish the chef prepared for her when John slumps in the chair across from her, looking defeated. "What's wrong?" she asks. He proceeds to tell her. After the firefights confirmed that there was no fire, John, like Lucy, assumed the alarm was either faulty or someone accidentally opened the fire door. He checked the indoor security camera aimed at the door, only to see it be opened from the outside. Suspicious, he checked the outdoor camera. Clear as day. There's the 10-year-old entitled outside pulling the door open before running off. As it's now a crime, John sends the footage to the police, and they pay a visit to the entitled family. At first, they tried to deny anything, but when the officer said that John was intending to press charges, the 10-year-old revealed Dick and Karen had paid him $100 each to open the door and set off the alarm. Because of his age, the 10-year-old wasn't charged. However, KPS paid the family a lovely visit, and the entitled family settled out of court before John could sue the pants off of them. They had to pay for a brand new fire door, one that couldn't open on the outside, as well as a brand new alarm system, and John made sure to pick the best grade, most expensive, on the market. From then on, the hostess would wait outside the restaurant to make sure that no children could get in. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.